The name I would like to go by would be Dee. I came to Canada when I was 4 years old, and I came here to have open heart surgery at Sick Kids Hospital.
You'd like to be teaching?
Yes, I'm qualified to teach preschool. I'm a George Brown College graduate, 2004. Just because you're homeless doesn't mean you don't want to work. One of the biggest myths is that people take the money and do drugs. We do not do drugs. Not everybody does drugs with the money. Some people, like me, try to survive. The cost of inflation is very high. And every time I go to the grocery store, it goes up, and it's very tough to survive on the streets.
Sort of, how did the situation come up that you became unhoused, do you think?
Stuff happens. You have no control over life. Fires happen. I've been through several fires in my lifetime. Just not knowing the system.
So right now you're unhoused?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you think you'll sleep tonight?
If I try not to sleep in the park at night, but tonight, if I get a spot, try to sneak in someplace before certain systems are turned on. I try to sleep on the transit. I try to sleep in a stairwell or somebody's door, or couch surfing, shelter. That's the last resort, is the shelter.
And how often have you stayed in a shelter?
It depends on and off because I'm still there. So let me see, 5 years more plus over the years.
Okay. And how do you find staying in a shelter? Like, how is it?
I don't like it. The shelter is not. It's an unfair place. It's not a place where I want anybody to go to. But you have to do what you have to do because it's cold outside.
Yeah.
And I don't want to freeze to death.
Yeah. Do you find you had to move from different shelters often?
Yes, I had, they keep you, I think it was like every 3 months we had to move.
You had to move?
Yes.
And that's for everyone?
For everybody had to move.
And have you ever lived outside in an encampment?
Yes.
Okay.
But sometimes I just sit on the park benches, if that's included.
Yeah.
Okay, I sit on the park benches for hours because I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah. Have you ever set up a tent?
Yes.
Okay. And how was it living in the tent?
In the summertime, summer or winter, it's not good.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, at least you're not worried about freezing to death.
And did you feel safe staying in the tent?
If it's in my friend's backyard, yes. But if it's in the park, definitely not.
Okay.
But even though we have people looking out, like trying to cover your backs, looking out for you.
In a park?
Yes.
And you've stayed in a tent in a park?
Yes.
And how was that?
Very uncomfortable because it's like you're into the park with one set of problems, and then you come out with your back hurting you from sleeping on the ground. You have to worry about when it rains, how high the water level is going to come up to you, and so you get cramps in your joints, you get cramps everywhere, and you get colds and stuff.
How would you compare staying in a tent in the park to staying in the shelter?
If you stay in a tent, you have your own rules. You could do whatever you want, and you don't have nobody to answer to. But in the shelter, you have to be in by, say, curfew is 10 o'clock. If you're 1 minute late, out the door you go. But the shelter, the tent, you have no food. You have to know the schedules when certain agencies come. But the benefits of the shelter is that you have set times to eat meals.
Did you find it hard to keep your belongings safe?
Oh yes, very hard. I would have to sleep with my wallet either under my pillow or strapped to my stomach, or if I had a backpack.
Did you ever, when you're staying in a park, did you ever hear about like where you're staying, like that there's an eviction happening?
Yes, and the cops were there a couple weeks ago trying to kick everybody out.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where are they going to go? Like, we're not hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just trying to survive. Where are we going to go? Leave the people alone in the park. They're trying. We're not hurting anybody. We're just trying to survive, just like everybody else. Everybody is only one paycheck away from being homeless. We don't know what tomorrow holds.
They see the tents, they see the people, and they don't know why it's there or how it's there or how people get there. Very quickly, I met some of my neighbors, and then you quickly get to understand their stories and how they got there. And I thought to myself, wow, what a bunch of wonderful people that I'm living with. I'm Vince Michael, 54 years old. There's so many scenarios that brought me down to that tent, but I would like to start off in November the 17th, 2019. I'll never forget that day because, I'm a professional truck driver. I've been driving tractor trailer for 35 years. And November the 17th, 2019, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had to call 911. I was in the province of Quebec. I was at the Flying J truck stop, parked in my truck. I couldn't breathe. For the life of me, I couldn't breathe. It felt like a horse kicked me in the stomach, and you just can't catch your breath. The ambulance, they came to my truck, and they took me from there to the Cité de la Santé, which in English is the City of Health, in Laval, Quebec, where I stayed for 6 months. But originally in November and December, of course, the whole world never knew about or heard about COVID. They had said I had chronic heart disease. I drive tractor trailer for a living. I have an AZ license. It's my life. That doctor at that time, because I had chronic heart disease, or she thought I did, pulled my license from me. I applied for unemployment insurance. That got denied. I came back to Ontario, got my license back, which, by the way, cost me about $4,800 of my own money. I went to go start my car. The engine blew because it sat for so long. It was so cold out, my engine blew. Now, if anybody knows the trucking industry, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning starts. Kind of hard to get there when you don't have a car. I did that for 2 years, as best I could, finding jobs that I could get to, or, sleep in the truck or whatever it was. And, I don't blame the company, but I lost my job. So there I was, my last paycheck, I was getting hotel rooms, but money only lasts so long. And I'm calling that homeless shelter emergency line, and, oh, we're full, sir. We're full, sir. I'm sorry, we're full, sir. Call back in another 2 hours. And I did that for a week until my money ran out. And went down to that Allen Gardens there. I saw a bunch of tents, and I guess I went and seen this woman. And so anyway, lucky enough, she said, "Oh, well, I have a tent. You can have that." It was just a little tiny tent, and it's like a kid's tent for summertime, where the mosquitoes can still get in, right? Yeah. So can you imagine the cold air? It's hard enough getting out of that tent. Yeah. With depression and everything else hitting in, it really took every ounce of energy I had. You have to picture it's really cold. And the damp is right through your bones. And I got 4 or 5 sleeping bags on. So how much energy am I going to have to take those sleeping bags off to get even colder, to put my clothes out, my boots are damp, my socks are damp. And if anyone knows what putting on damp clothes in that kind of -degree weather is very hard. Very hard, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, to get out, just to get across the street to that Sherburne Health, just so I can stay warm. I think the government and a lot of people need a real hard pill of reality to sit there and say, wake the fuck up. Sorry for my language, but, we need to wake up. Too many times, and pun intended when I tell you I was just in the dark. Yeah. I'm literally in the dark when it comes to resources. Literally in the dark, I can't see nothing. Literally in the dark when I see no hope in the near future. Just in the dark, and no resource. And even the people that wanted to help wanted to give up because everyone seems to run into this roadblock I call the government. The people who want to change the world or do something good all seem to come to a roadblock when it comes to, we'll have your people call my people, and I'm calling a resources and I'm getting a voicemail that's telling me to go to another extension. They're telling me to go to another extension, and that's what's going on with you people there at Outreach. That's what I think. We're all coming into, at the end of the day, nobody's got answers. They're passing the buck. Well, let me put you through to here, sir. No, you need social services here, sir. No. Try the Fred Victor, sir. And you're just getting voicemail after voicemail after voicemail. Mm-hmm. Before going to the tent, I went to a shelter, and I was working now. I was working for Pet Value, $29 an hour, driving tractor trailer. Again, 3 o'clock in the morning starts. Mm-hmm. 1 o'clock in the morning, I get up. Gonna get ready for work. I'm making a coffee. I had one of the workers there at the shelter say, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm making a coffee. I have to go to work. I have to be at work for 3 a.m. And he said, "Well, no." He said, "You can't make a coffee. That's against our rules and regulations." And I was angry and upset, and I'm not on my medication for anxiety and stuff like that. So I got upset and I said, "Fine, have your coffee." And I get ready for work. I go across the street. Now it's 1:30 in the morning, waiting for the bus. And I get one of those attitude thoughts in my head. And I said, well, let me call this guy. So I called the shelter because, anyone staying in a shelter with the rules is we're not allowed nobody out before 4 o'clock in the morning.
You can't leave.
You can't leave. You can't go. You can't even go out on the deck for a cigarette. So I made because I had special privileges because I was working that I could leave early. So I got to the bus shelter and I called the guy and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm fine." I said, I just was wondering, can I go outside for a cigarette?" And he said, "Oh, you're being funny, are you?" Right? Yeah. So I let it go. I went to work. So I got to work at 3 in. I worked till 5 o'clock at night. 2-hour bus ride back to the shelter at 7 o'clock Friday night. I get there and well, you've been discharged. I said, "Well, what do you mean I've been discharged?" So I got discharged because somebody's ego and pride, and lack of understanding for number one, being homeless. Not to mention my mental faculties of my brain. I got some guy working part-time here that had the authority to kick me out, that brought me to Allen Gardens, that where ultimately I lost my job. Aren't they supposed to be there to promote me and help me to get back on my feet and to get a job? And they say that they got social workers to help you, Well, you know what? Some part-timer that didn't like what I had to say to him because he had the attitude, not me. And I'm homeless, don't you know? And I got to keep my mouth shut. I'm not allowed to verbally voice my opinion because, again, I got no rights. I'm just a piece of shit being homeless, living in a shelter. The best way for me to get through the day is start to developing an attitude of gratitude, which is at this time, even though I have an apartment, I'm very grateful for it. At the same time, I'm not. I'm lonely. I'm irritable, miserable. I'm discontent. I'm still only getting $600 a month. That's gone the very first day I get my welfare check. What's today's date? Today's what?
20th? February 20th.
Whatever it is. I'm 11 days away from getting paid, and guess what? I ain't got a damn thing in my fridge. I am broke. I got no food. After here, I'm gonna go to someplace downtown to try to get myself something to eat. That's the reality of what's going on today, and everybody deals with whatever they're going through differently. So it's a hard thing trying to bring the world into I call it the third dimension to see why other people are going through what they're going through. And even at the end of the day, if it's none of their business, at the end of the day, they should just ask themselves, was I kind and caring and compassionate towards my fellow man that might have needed a helping hand? Ask yourself if you've been a decent human being, or do you owe somebody an apology? Were you the fucking asshole, or was it that guy homeless on the street begging for change because he don't know where he's going to eat next or sleep next? Who was the fucking asshole? Put on those glasses and take a look. Thank you.